Welcome to another episode of Independent Thought and Freedom, where we have conversations with some of the most interesting people around the world who are shaking up politics, society, economies, and ideas. We've had some amazing guests on this program, including The Saker, Paul Craig Roberts, Sheikh Imran Hussein, E. Michael Jones, Cynthia McKinney, and more. If you'd like to support us to reach our next goal of actually putting together live events where we bring some of my best guests side by side on one stage, please consider becoming a monthly subscriber on Patreon. You'll find the link below. Also, if you are an author or researcher with important ideas to share with the world and want to have a greater impact, I'm offering a free masterclass, 3 steps on how to leverage your intellectual authority to become a media personality. The link for that class is in the description as well. And now, on to this week's show. Welcome to Independent Thought and Freedom. Is the mainstream international media broadcasting fake news about India? Are they deliberately doing a smear campaign for their own political agenda? And why would they deceitfully hide the real India? These are questions asked by world traveler and former fundamentalist Christian Renee Lynn in her book, India Unstripped. Now the 3rd largest economy in the world, India is increasingly being brought under the American media spotlight, whether it be through attacks on the US presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard, or questions about India stealing American workers' jobs, or fears over escalating tensions over India's Kashmir territory, or the massive Howdy Modi rally in Texas, which was the biggest rally by a foreign leader in American history, where the US President Donald Trump himself was contented to be a mere opening act for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That's a big accomplishment indeed. Renee Lynn's story is fascinating for showing a different American view of India, and I'm pleased to explore her story today. Welcome, Renee.
Oh, thank you, Kurt. Thank you for having me and inviting me. I really appreciate it, and it's a pleasure meeting you and chatting with you today.
Thanks so much. What's it like in New Jersey right now?
Oh my God, the weather is erratic. Yesterday was 90, now today is 70. It went from really hot to really cold, so it's fluctuating like mad. So
Great. Now, your background in this is really fascinating. I think I probably came across you first through either your videos or your Twitter, because you've been engaged in so much debate about Indian affairs in America. But when I saw your background, you mentioned how you grew up as a fundamentalist Christian, and you had a sort of change. That I'd really like to explore that. Can you describe growing up as a fundamentalist Christian?
Okay, so I was grown up first in the Catholic Church, and then they have different branches of Christianity, Baptist and evangelical. So your whole life growing up, you always hear the church say, if you don't accept Jesus as your personal savior, you're going to burn in hell, you're going to burn in hell. So they ingrained this ideology in people's heads. And sadly enough, people really believe it. And I did too. I lived in constant fear, depression, anxiety, guilt. So when you go to church every Sunday, because we're taught, and especially from my family still today, they're kind of like radical Christians, where it's like you only accept Jesus as your personal savior or you're going to go to hell. So I would question that. That means the whole entire world's going to go to hell. Where's the logic? It doesn't make sense. Why would God kill the whole world and send them to hell? It doesn't make sense. But
when you say your family are radical Christians, you mean Catholic or evangelical or what?
They're kind of like geared towards more Baptist evangelical Christians. So
Right. But did you convert from Catholicism to evangelical Christianity?
yes, because ironically, even the Christian, different branches of Christianity, they even fight with each other. So a lot of the like Baptist type Christians, they say that Catholic is all about money, it's a cult, don't be a Catholic. So, I was born in Catholic religion, I had all the Baptists done, but then later my family, they got out of the Catholic Church and they started going more toward evangelical Baptist type churches. So most of my upbringing has been that. And it's really, I think my personal opinion is I feel like a lot of people here in the Western world, America, Europe, especially America, they have a lot of anxiety issues, depression issues, and I think a lot of that is geared from this ideology that's been ingrained in our head that we're going to burn in hell. I mean, that's like torture. Could you imagine? Even me, I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm here to like tell the truth and tell everybody. Even I believed it. I believe that, I'm going to burn in hell. Let me try to convert all these people to Jesus. That's what we're here to do. We can't have them burn in hell forever. So
Yeah.
it's just like, it's just crazy, but it's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, I was actually raised a Catholic myself. My father's Catholic and my mother's Hindu. And yeah, so I'm very familiar with the Catholic Church in particular, and I have an interest in religion in general and Christianity. Yeah, and what's really amazing too is the way the evangelicals, Protestants in particular, demonize Catholicism, because in fact there are a lot of similarities between Catholicism and Hinduism in many ways, which I won't go explore too much in this interview, but in terms of the saints, the icons, the colors, the aesthetic, even the old mass when it was done in Latin, and you have your incense and on Ash Wednesday, you have the ashes on the forehead. You have the 40 days of fasting. Fridays, you don't eat meat. There's a lot of, the different orders of, nuns and priests and monks and it's very different from the kind of plain, I don't know, I consider the kind of plain Jane Protestantism where they're against all these icons and against all these things. Did you find yourself very critical of the Catholic Church in the same way that you were about Hinduism? Because I know many Protestant Christians do call Catholicism just paganism.
Yeah, and actually when I got out of the Catholic Church and went more Baptist, I was even preaching, oh, you're Catholic? Exactly, like it's all pagan and it's a false religion. And even though they accept Jesus and they have the same, Bible, and they preach basically the same thing, I was even attacking people who were Catholic. And I was even saying that, you're in a cult. You have to come out of that. You have to be Baptist, evangelical. So even I was like at the point later, I was even like condoling the Catholic religion. So it's always there's always a war with the branches of I'm better Christian than you. My Christianity is better than you. You should be Baptist. You should be Protestant. It's like, oh my God, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean that's so taken for granted in the Abrahamic religions, whether it be Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and unfortunately, I have to say that's what's gotten the world in trouble so much over the Holy Land in Israel. everybody thinking that God has spoken to them exclusively and they have the right interpretation of history and the end of the world and the second coming or the first coming of the Messiah, and everybody has, and it's that is actually driving a push to nuclear war in a way that a lot of people, a lot of secularly educated people don't understand how much this informs global politics and policy making. A lot of times it's not as rational as it appears in the foreign policy journals. It's actually motivated by these religious, these intense, deep religious convictions, and that between all these different little groups there. So yeah.
Even I was like that. Jesus is coming. When I was, a Christian and all that, Jesus is coming. Get ready. Jesus is coming. And then the church would say, Jesus is going to be in the next 5 years. He's definitely going to come back in 5 years, 10 years. Well, here I am over 10 years later and Jesus still isn't here. But, at that time, it's because I was really brainwashed by the church. I mean, they literally tortured me to a point where I lived in agony and fear that I couldn't even leave the house. They would ingrain that you're a sinner. You're going to burn in hell. God's going to punish you. He's going to destroy you. And they would come to my house every day, the pastors, the deacon, the elders of the church, and they used to torture me and brainwash me. And it got to the point where I was scared to death to leave the house. I would literally sit in my car for 5 minutes. I was afraid, like, God's going to get me. He's going to destroy me. He's going to kill me, but you have to leave to go to work or, food shopping. I was that severe and severely brainwashed. So, yes, this is real, what's happening. A lot of people, I believe, they don't even want to talk about it or discuss it. I do, because if I can help somebody, what transferred my life and what helped me, then if I can help somebody else, then, that makes me feel good, because I know I've been there. I know the damage that they can do to people's mind. It's real. Just in the same scenario, like in Islam, how they brainwash people. There's certain radical groups, and then they go out, the jihadis, and then they're bombing people. It's like the same brainwashing scenario, just different. I don't know how to say it. Yeah, more. Yeah, like this is like non-violent, but that's violent. But you get the idea what I'm trying to say. The brainwashing, the cults, the Christians, and the Islamic people do.
Yeah, and I think it's important for non-Christians or even Christians who are on the receiving end of some of the abuse, as Hindus often are. I think, to sometimes understand that a lot of these people mean well, and they are, as you say, terrified. They're terrified of themselves burning in hell, and in their own sort of twisted logic, they love you and don't want you to go to hell. You know what I mean? So they think they're doing something very good when they when they attack your beliefs and your ancestry and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very complicated thing. But I do think it's important to start off with, because I think a lot of the anti-Indian and anti-Hindu nationalist rhetoric is motivated, perhaps subconsciously, by this sort of Christian revulsion at things like seeing Hindus as idol worshippers, and
Mm-hmm.
You hear about things, about cow urine and all these sort of very, very nasty things people say about Hindus and Hinduism all the time. And I think that does enter into it at even a subconscious level, even if for people who say they don't, that's not why they're attacking. I somehow don't fully believe it. I think that maybe somewhere in the back of their mind they have these these prejudices, these negative ideas that they can't let go of. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have good people in all religions, Christian, Islam, Hindu, you do. And you do have bad people in all religion. And it all depends like on what are you believing, how are you raised, whether it is in a Hindu environment. Because I had read stories from Hindu Brahmins in India where their parents tortured them in a sense, like, okay, we have like 1 billion gods, you have to know 1,000 names by a week. And that would drive anybody crazy. So there are Hindu Brahmins that end up converting to Christianity because they couldn't take the abuse that their Brahmin family was forcing them to learn. So it can go either way. For me, I converted to Hinduism. And, you hear Hindu Brahmins, they're converting to Christianity. You have Islam people converting to Christianity. So I think a lot of it is based on your upbringing, who's like brainwashing you, and like, especially if you're a child in your family. So I think a lot of it has to do with that. But overall, like for me, when I geared toward Hinduism, and I'm a Hindu now, is because Hinduism doesn't, for the most part, don't push or force you like Christianity and Islam with that you're going to burn in hell. It's about your own dharma, your own karma. I love the concepts of love and nonviolence and vegetarianism. For me, Hinduism is, I would love to see the whole world as Hindus, because I believe that like Hinduism is essential for humanity because of their teachings that they teach as compared to, say, Christianity or Islam. So a lot of my messages that I put out there is that, because I just think that it's great how, and that frees you from thinking that you're going to burn in hell forever, because it's not like that in Hinduism. It's your own dharma, karma. Like that's what set me free from all this mind torturing and all the fear and anxiety I went through when I was searching. Then I found Hinduism and started learning, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to burn in hell forever. It's like, I'm free. This is my dharma, my karma. So yeah, for me, that's what a lot of my preaching, because that's what saved me, my life, basically, I guess to say.
Yeah, I mean, just to give you my own view on this, because I think it's an interesting discussion about Hinduism and the whole world. I think from a Hindu perspective, from a true Hindu perspective, if you want to put it that way, the whole world already is Hindu, in the sense that Hinduism, I think the best translation of Hinduism, when you mean Sanatan Dharma, which is the word Hinduism, for people who don't know, that Hindu is a word used by Muslims when they came across Turks and across the Indus River, everybody on the other side of the Indus River, Hindu, right? So, but it's more like Sanatan Dharma is like natural law. I always like to tell Westerners think of like Greek philosophy, or it's because they're actually connected. And it's not that there was just one teaching. You had all these schools of thoughts and everybody is trying to get to the truth. And maybe some people follow certain traditions, other people follow other traditions, but you could learn from each other and you follow what is your path, etc. And that, I think for Hindus, they would accept that everybody, Christians, Muslims, Christians, Jews, whatever, Yoruba, Quechua people, Mayans, Babylonians, ancient Egyptians, whatever, that, God has revealed himself to everybody in very specific ways in very specific times and has imparted wisdom, and that we can also learn from other traditions. They can learn from our traditions as we all try to find the absolute truth.
Yes, that's true.
And So it's really what it is the exclusivity is the problem in my view. When people think that they have the definitive and only way and they can't learn from anybody else, and
Yes.
that same thing you said. When I was a Christian, I remember when I first learned about Gandhi and his life when I was I don't know, 12 years old or something. That was like when the movie Gandhi came out, and obviously, you knew him, but that movie, made it very moving inside, and then, I thought, so Gandhi's going to hell? It's like, what?
Yeah.
I was like,
I know. It's more like, oh my God, what a great guy he was, right? Look, like, yeah, Gandhi's going to get to hell. That's right. I could have said it any better.
It's like I just could not accept that. But interestingly enough, there are types of Christianity that are more open to things like that, and I mean Pope Francis himself has basically said things like that, and I remember reading I believe it's a Catholic theologian book, and he was saying how there are many Catholics that actually don't believe in hell. And that they've incorporated that as part of their debate among theologians. So I guess there is more nuance, but as you say, the general perception, the mass idea, yeah, that's very it's weighs heavily on people's consciousness in ways that many people don't understand how deeply it penetrates your whole view of the world, of history, and so forth. And so what's interesting from my perspective is, and for you, what made you change? What has made your personal story, different from most Americans?
You mean my story?
Like you change out of this fundamentalist Christianity into embracing Hinduism, whereas probably most Americans would not take that step. What was it that made you make that change?
What happened was I came to a really horrible point in my life where I was having anxiety and panic attacks daily. And I always tell somebody, if you never had an anxiety attack, I can't even explain to you what it is, but you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. It's that terrifying. You think once it starts that you're not going to get out of it, and it'll last mine will last in like an hour. And I would have them 1 to 2 times a day. I couldn't even work. I was just in my apartment. I had to go out on disability from work. It was brutal. And I would just self-talk in my head. Everything's going to be okay. It's all in your head. So I went through one of the most darkest periods of my life. So I started getting a little bit better. And
was that based on your fear of God punishing you, or is that or something else?
Fear from child growing up, and then the church come in and say you're going to burn in hell. I think it just one day it all caught up to me. And I started having these attacks.
If you don't mind, I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, but I think that what you're describing there, I think things like Greta Thunberg and this climate strike and perhaps other movements, but that one comes to mind immediately. It's sort of trying to induce a similar kind of fear. The world is going to end, and it is almost pushing. And I think that a lot of people that have lost their faith in Christianity, but they still have that sort of end of the world mentality. They latch on to this movement to almost make their anxieties make sense to them. I don't know if you agree with that it's a similar sort of mental state.
Yeah, I see your point, and that's probably true in a lot of cases for a lot of people. And me at that time, I was going through all that. I'm just speculating subconsciously. That's why I'm going through all this, because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, I wasn't thinking it at the time, but maybe deep down, like subconsciously, I was. And I don't know if you're familiar, New Jersey, where I live, we have the biggest concentration of Indians than any other state in the United States of America. So one day there was this Indian festival, and I always wanted to go to India. I was just fascinated with cows in India since I was a child. So I went there, and this lady gave me a pamphlet on Hinduism, and I read it, and obviously it was so esoteric to me, but I just read it anyway because I just wanted to read it. And I found it so practical and so logical. So then I started learning more about Hinduism and Dharma and karma and yoga, meditation, all these Indian philosophies. And it's a slow process to get out of the mindset that was ingrained in my head. So it took quite a long time, but that's how I slowly freed myself from anxiety attacks and all these anxiety attacks, and realizing, hey, you're not going to burn in hell, girlfriend. You're not going to burn in hell. So
that first step must have been the most shocking. I'm guessing. So where was it you went to? Was it like a ISKCON temple? They do a lot of outreach, or did you go to to something else?
So it was basically one of them, because we have a lot of different festivals. It was just like an outside function place where they had like tables set up, but it just happened to be like an Indian festival. So it was like one of them things. And that was the moment that changed my life forever, because I didn't even know what Hinduism was. I never even heard of it. So I'm getting this, like I knew, but I didn't know. So I started reading this and it was like, wow, this is weird. But for some reason, I felt so connected because it was logical and practical, and it's more like a way of life. And I love the Indian philosophies like yoga and meditation and all that. So I didn't let go. I wanted to learn more. I went to the library. I took out books. I just started reading on the internet, and that's what like transformed my life.
So it was like an intellectual transformation. It's not like you went to a temple or you went to some sort of puja or some sort of service. But it was more the ideas of it. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was more the ideas of Hinduism that really attracted me, and I just started learning, like, well, this makes sense because the whole world isn't going to burn in hell if they don't accept Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior. Like, this logically makes sense, and just the whole, like, tenets of Hinduism with love and acceptance and, trying to be nonviolent, the respect that they have for animals, even animals and insects, like, wow, blows my mind. Because here, in our Western counterparts, like, we just like take the cow, like she's only like, let's butcher her up and eat her for meat, take these pork, and oh my God. So it was like that moment's like, this seems like human, this seems like humanity to me. So that's why I transferred into Hinduism, because it's logical.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. So it was kind of an intellectual conversion rather than any other type of conversion. Yeah, I think for me, I also made that sort of. For me, it was two things. One was cultural. I was trying to get back in touch with my cultural roots, but by that time, I had become atheist. While in the Catholic Church, I sort of became an atheist, and I stopped believing in a lot of the things, and then I just embraced it culturally. But philosophically, slowly I was changed and transformed as well. So that's an interesting point of
because you said that your dad is Hindu, your mom's Christian.
My mother was Hindu and my father was Catholic. Yeah.
And your father's Catholic. Oh, okay. So in your house, do your parents like worship like Jesus and worship like, say, Lord Shiva, or like, do you consider yourself more Hindu or Christian, or like, how do you look at your life now? Because it's kind of like similar to what I went through.
Yeah. For me, I fully embraced Hinduism. Although I have tremendous respect for Catholicism and other religion, but because I was raised a Catholic and I mean I really love reading Catholic theology and everything. But I again, from my view of Hinduism, all for Hindus, all religious paths are valid, right? None are invalid. So I can accept Catholic insight into truth. It's just that I don't see it as the only possible insight. That's the only difference. So,
Yes.
but I am a practicing Hindu, and yeah, because I stopped going to the church before because there were certain things that I couldn't.
Yeah,
accept.
I haven't. The only time I go into church, if I have to, if it's a wedding or baptism or something, because my family obviously are all Christian, so that's the only time that I'll go into a church is into that, because I just can't stand when you go to church on Sundays and the message that they all say, accept Jesus, you're going to burn in hell. Man, I don't want to hear that. It's like that's really a lot of their message. So I stopped going years ago.
I kind of filter that out and take the other things as well, because there's a lot of amazing spirituality from the building, from the architecture, from the readings, from the prayers, from the meditations, and the whole sensory experience of the Catholic Church, I think is, which I think the Protestants criticize the sensory experience because they see it as satanic. Unfortunately, that's how they see it. I understand their argument, but I don't agree with it. But I understand where they're coming from. And but yeah, so that's very interesting. So it was a spiritual journey and so forth. And you had an experience while you were working for the U.S. government. You became a vegetarian and a Hindu. Why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so yeah, I've been a vegetarian since, actually, believe it or not, it was December 25th, 2006. It happened to be on Christmas Day. I know this sounds like really weird, but I just happened to wake up that day. I'm learning all this, and I wanted to. And it's kind of like I heard something say, now's the time to be a vegetarian. So I'm like, oh my God, yeah. So, and ironically, from that day forward, it did not. I didn't even think about meat. I did not want meat. I haven't touched meat since December 25th, 2006. And ironically, I didn't crave it. I didn't want it. It was like this spiritual thing, just like, whoop, and touched me like that. It was so ironic. So that's what happened there. But I've been a government employee my whole entire life. So I had this one, actually, I sued them, so I can't mention. Yeah, I can. I just can't mention the certain things I can't mention. So yeah, so I used to work with senators, assemblymen, politicians. So it was a pretty prestigious agency that I worked with. And believe it or not,
so that was a government service. Was it at the state level or federal?
State.
Right. Mm-hmm.
With the state of New Jersey. So, and believe it or not, my colleagues, they're like lawyers, you're working with prestigious people. So in my department there, they used to make fun of me because I was a vegetarian. And when you have Christmas parties and things like that, you go out to lunch. So I would say, I don't want to go to no steakhouse. I said, I'm a Hindu. I said, I don't want to be all that. Let's go somewhere that has vegetarian options. So they would laugh, and they would bring in ceramic cows and put it on the conference table, things like that. They used to make fun of me and just fun of me being a Hindu. So one time I believe it was Navratri, and I brought in a Lord Shiva statue, and I put it on my desk. And my colleagues were saying, oh, you're putting curses on me. Oh, Lord Shiva's evil, right? So they started this big commotion. I had the director of human resources come down, managers, and they publicly humiliated me in my department. And we had this conference. And I explained to them in a simple way that, look, Lord Shiva is equivalent in Hinduism as Jesus is in Christianity. So I said, he's good, Jesus good, you had to break it up. So they're Googling on Google, Indian curse God. So of course, obviously, how stupid can you be to do a Google search? Obviously, you're going to get all the Indian gods. So they like attacked me for like an hour. And the director of human resources says, if you ever bring this statue in again, I never want to see it. You get it off your desk and you never bring it back. So I said to him at that time, I said, well, guess what? If I can't have Lord Shiva on my desk, I don't want to see Jesus. I don't want to see Mother Mary. I don't want to see Buddha, right? They didn't know how to answer that. But I was so humiliated. This public attack that they did on me, I just silently took it. Then after that, they would make fun of me and say all these things. And I got really sick. I had to take time off from work. And I'm like, this place is just horrible. I got a lawyer. I found a lawyer. He took my case. And we end up settling out of court. And I ended up winning that lawsuit. I won last August. So it's been a little over a year now. So we end up settling because, if you end up going to court and doing all that, you're risking yourself. So we thought, and I just want to get it behind me. It was just a nightmare how I was abused and harassed for being a vegetarian and a Hindu.
Wow. Was it a civil suit or was it, because I'm sure there's discrimination aspects that could have been brought in, but was it basically a civil suit you brought against the state of New Jersey? Or
I believe it was called a civil suit. So basically my lawyer, he put a summons in for the state of New Jersey. So we sued this particular agency. Yeah, so when he summons that, you know how all the reporters, they wait down the courthouse and they wait for these summons to come in so they can do news. So obviously, this white Hindu girl is suing the state of New Jersey for putting curses on them with Shiva. So that's going to attract attention. Before you know it, it was in the news. I was like, oh my God. And my lawyer said, Renee, be prepared. You might have press coming to your house, journalists, they might want to question you because you just don't hear this. You just don't hear this. This is like a rarity that something like this would happen. Like, it was strange, but luckily I didn't have any press or media come to my house. A couple journalists had wrote it in a couple articles, and they put the articles out there and they're online. So yeah, that's the most part that it came to. And they actually went down to this agency in the state of New Jersey, but they didn't want to make any comments because they knew what they did to me was wrong. Personally attacking me like that for being a Hindu. We're talking about top managers, directors, human resources. They knew that their behavior was wrong. See, and this is the problem when you work in positions like this. The lawyers, the politicians, they all think that they're more powerful than anybody. They can just abuse whoever they want and get away with it. But not me. I stand up for myself. If I feel I'm right, I will fight till I get the truth out. That's just my personality. I've always been like that. And I fought every single one of them, and I end up winning the lawsuit. And that made me feel good to teach them a lesson. Hey, look, you just can't go around bullying anybody that you want and think that you can get away with it. So this was a good lesson. Teach them a lesson to don't do this to other employees, thinking that you could just humiliate them like that. I mean, granted, yes, majority of the people in America are Christians, but you do have people, we have Jewish people here, Buddhists, Hindus, so I was...
If you worked in the New Jersey state office and New Jersey has the largest amount of Indians in America, I would imagine that you did have some colleagues that were probably Hindu as well. Did you, or am I wrong?
Believe it or not, this agency that I worked with, there might have been one Indian, they weren't. They were, most of it, if you want to talk about different cultures, they were Jewish people, but there was no Indians.
Right. And what about the Indian or Hindu community in New Jersey at large? When they found out about your case, did you get a lot of support from them, or were you kind of on your own?
So what happened was I really don't share this story that often. Actually, I don't really share it at all. The first time I shared this story was I had an event in Delhi on August 25th with Sri John Foundation. They're a pretty famous foundation in India. I shared it there, and I shared it at another event September 8th in Chennai, and I shared it there. And actually, you're the third person that I'm sharing this story with. I really don't share it too much. I thought maybe to get it more out in the open, I think it would be good to share it with more people, but actually you're only the third person that I shared it with. And I can't really go into details. I am not allowed to mention how much I won. No one's allowed to know how much I won. I can't say anything bad about the agency itself or mention the agency name. So I can talk about it, but not the name, the more details like that I can't. But actually, I was thinking about getting, discussing this more, because actually people are like, oh my God, America? I'm shocked. Believe it or not, yes, America.
Well, I think as a follow-up to this, I would definitely put you on to some people who will be very interested in making a larger issue out of it, because it's very important. Because what you're showing that people don't believe is that it's acceptable to attack Hindus in a way that is not acceptable to attack Jews, Muslims, or Christians. Maybe Christians. Christians do get attacked a lot because of the anti-Christian feeling, but not in the same. Well, it's a different type of attack. Let's say it's a much more political type of attack. But the type of ridicule really that Hindus are subjected to is. And it comes from, and in a sense, the Christians, Muslims, and Hindus unite on this, because Hindus are seen as the great idol worshippers and the great pagans. It's like the last great pagan tradition in the world, after the Romans and Egyptians and Babylonians and whatnot. It's seen as evil on a scale like that. Even though all those religions that I just mentioned, the Greeks, the Romans, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, are not evil, but from the Judeo-Christian perspective, they are seen as evil. So that's another thing. But so that's a very, very interesting story on so many levels. Is this what politicized what was really a spiritual journey at first? Because you've really gone on a political tangent now, talking about the lies about India, the media, Modi, politics. You've gotten into that, and which is how I learned about you first. But I knew there was some backstory that that would be very interesting, that pushed you in this direction. So I'm just wondering, is this incident what made you political, or was it something else?
Wow, what an awesome question. I mean, maybe subconsciously. I don't know. That's really great. Because actually I was doing my Voice of India thing before then. It wasn't called Voice of India at the time, but I would talk about India and Hindus and how much I love India. It's a great country and all this other stuff. You're right. So after that incident happened, ironically, you must have subconsciously, maybe I'm thinking, because it is true. And Hindus always get bashed on. In India, they're always getting bashed on. Here I am proclaiming myself, a white Hindu, and I'm getting bashed on because I'm a Hindu. So maybe you're right. Maybe subconsciously, I had enough of this, and I'm the type of person I will fight you tooth and nail. If I feel that I'm right and you're doing something to hurt somebody, I will come And, I will speak my voice and I will get it out there. So, yeah, maybe since this incident happened, I have been more geared on, the political end of India. And I expose people like Priyanka Chopra in that video that went absolutely viral for what she was making the Hindus look like in her television series. So, yeah, I do voice my opinion out on certain, say, celebrities and certain platforms just to get the message out. So, yeah, that's a great question. Maybe you're right. Maybe subconsciously it pushed me more to get out there more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, people have mentioned the attacks on Tulsi Gabbard as well. Jimmy Dore, who's a progressive that I like a lot. And even though I'm not a progressive in that sense at all, but he was talking about how people are attacking Tulsi so much. And it's like, well, Tulsi's a Hindu and Modi's a Hindu, so therefore it's acceptable to attack Tulsi for things you don't like about Modi. And he's saying, that would never be acceptable for any other religion but for Hinduism. And I found that very insightful for him to me, because he doesn't usually talk about those types of things, and he doesn't, seem to be particularly, sensitive to Hinduism or whatever. It's just that his sense of justice, that and logic, that something is wrong here logically, and yeah. So, but so you mentioned that. I now remember the first video I saw of yours. It was interesting when you were talking about the rape culture and the exaggeration of the West's portrayal of India and rape. But before we get to that issue, and I'm not downplaying the rape issue in India at all, but there's a way that it's exploited, which is hypocritical. Your Priyanka Chopra video, that went viral. Why don't you explain it a little more?
Oh, okay. So for people that aren't familiar, she had a TV series here in America. I believe it was called Quantico,
yeah.
Yeah, Quantico. And she made Hindus look like terrorists and Pakistan the victim. So I see on social media, people were angry at her. So even I got angry. I'm like, oh my God, seriously, how could you even portray it like this? So I just did a 1-minute video, and I introduced myself, Renee Lynn, and I'm a published author here, and I love India as much as America. And how could you portray Hindus as terrorists and Pakistan as the victims when everybody knows that Pakistan's a terror hub of the world? So I said a little short message, and little did I know that went absolutely crazy viral in India and around the world. And oh my God, it was on every single platform that you can imagine. It went crazy. So, and I'm sure she's seen it, because there's no way she could have not seen it. I mean, I think everybody's seen that video. So I'm saying to myself, oh my God, Priyanka Chopra must really hate me now. I'm sure she's seen it.
No, but it's very important, and I like the way you put that, because I see it on TV and in the movies all the time, and I realized when I was younger, the same thing must have happened, but it was in my subconscious that the movies make you think, well, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. And so the bad guys will always have Russian accents or stuff like that. That was a big thing. And now they're coming, after the Cold War, that stopped, but now they're coming back with the bad guys are Russian, and it really doesn't make sense. And just so they're making the Hindus seem like the bad guys and the Pakistanis seem like the good guys.
Yes.
And as you said, the global, Pakistan's role in global terror. Now, a lot of people who are consumers of the mainstream media will say, oh, well, these are just Hindu nationalists talking about this. But I mean, if you just think about the facts, where was Osama bin Laden found? In Pakistan.
Yes.
Where does the Dalai Lama take refuge? in India. You know what I mean? The Dalai Lama doesn't go to Pakistan for refuge.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no
I've
aspirants.
been to Pakistan. I'm like a world traveler. I travel all over the world. I've never been to Pakistan. I don't want to go to Pakistan because, be honest with you, I probably more than likely won't make it out alive. It's the sad truth, but especially now, what you could do. So it's like for her to say that, I would now, she should understand, like, my God, now you know why you had the hugest backlash ever from the Hindu community saying something like that. It's just awful. So I had to give her a piece of my mind because that's what I'm good at. I like to give people a piece of my mind. So I gave her a piece of my mind.
I mean, I lost that. I lost that because of the internet connection. Who did you give a piece of your mind to?
Oh, I said, so like people like Priyanka Chopra, like I like to give people a piece of my mind.
Yeah.
You know, when
Was it a particular person you were talking about?
Priyanka Chopra.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Right.
So I like, say I gave her a piece of my mind because she deserved it.
Yeah. And there, we may have Pakistanis listening, and I have Pakistani friends and so forth, and people. I mean, it's not all Pakistanis. One of the problems is the Pakistani state is controlled so much by the military.
Yeah.
And there's this fanatic element in Pakistan that has really taken the country back, and there are a lot of tolerant, modern, progressive-minded Pakistanis who would like to see their country, on a different track, and I certainly support that. But the sort of militaristic, anti-India, anti-Hindu, Islamic jihad thing that defines so much of the Pakistani state, I am critical of it, and I don't mean every Pakistani person at all. In fact, there are many brave Pakistanis who have been, fighting for against all of that, and I support
yes,
them.
That's true. Yeah, me too. I know you're saying it's not like the whole entire Pakistan, but the country itself, because Imran Khan, if you look at his messages at the UN compared to Narendra Modi, like he was talking about, it's all about Kashmir, and he would say in a nonchalant way, well, we're going to attack you, blah, blah, blah. Like just his messages, he doesn't try to negotiate. He doesn't try to do peace with anybody. He just has like this mindset, like, I'm going to attack you in a very nonchalant, like undercover type way. Where Modi G, that's why he's got global acceptance now, not just in India, but around the world. And America, so many people in America love Modi because they see, like, he tries to like work with people and negotiate. He's not like, I'm going to kill you type mentality.
I mean, even if we take away the comparison of Modi and Imran Khan, which will get a lot of people upset and everything. I mean, but even if we just take strictly objectively the content of Imran Khan's address, he said that he would take up arms against the Indian government. He actually gave, he was inciting violence. That he was precisely, not in any oblique way, but in a very direct way. He did everything but say Kashmiris rise up against the Indian government. But without saying that sentence, I mean, there was no other conclusion. He said they are totally justified in whatever they do. Wouldn't you take up arms against India? There are 900,000 troops, which I do not believe there are 900,000 troops, 1 million troops in Kashmir. So he's blowing, and then he's saying, and if we are attacked, first of all, why would India attack Pakistan? The only reason is if Pakistan attacks India, which they did in occupying half of Kashmir. Then they said, if we are attacked, and we have to fight to the death. Well, we will send our nuclear arsenal. So he threatened nuclear war right on the UN floor.
No.
He justified an armed insurgency against the Indian government right on the UN floor, and nobody said anything. And if you call it out, you're supposed to be some radical Hindu fascist because you notice those facts. It's really incredible. And then it builds up on the things we were talking about before. People's prejudice about, idol worshipping, cow urine drinking, backward, caste oppressive, Indian rapists. They have all these stereotypes, and then now the Quantico movies, film, TV series, and all this stuff, portraying these evil, violent Hindus. I mean, people around the world can look for themselves whether they live in the UK, in the US, in Canada, wherever. Tell me, where are these violent Hindus? Right?
I know, exactly.
You can see Muslim immigrant communities. You can see, Sikh immigrant communities and so forth. And you can see these things. The only thing I would say that you will find violent Hindu communities, unfortunately, are in the Tamil Tiger communities from Sri Lanka, and it's not even India, but people, I guess, they don't know the difference, right? They don't know the difference. But it is such a small minority in any case. It's not Indian. It really has nothing to do with the state of India, because the state of India supported the Buddhist government against the radical Hindus there, because they did not support the suicide bombing of the Hindus even. So it's not a Hindu jihadist state in that way at all. And the Hindu Tamil Tigers, they killed Rajiv Gandhi, So anyway, but this starts to get into a lot of the details, but we might be jumping ahead of ourselves, because I want to continue with your story, and how your journey moved from a personal, spiritual one to, to having your Voice of India channel, to writing your book. Tell me, how did that start?
Oh, you mean my book, India Stripped?
Yeah, you have your book, India Stripped, and then the Voice of India is what? A channel you have?
Voice for India. Actually, it's Voice for India project. So Voice for India, I'm on Twitter and Facebook. They're my main channels for Voice for India. I do have a YouTube channel, but I'm not a YouTuber. I just put if I have an important message, then I'll put it there. But my main platforms are Twitter and Facebook. And actually, it really catapulted beyond my wildest dream. I'm getting hundreds of emails daily, comments on Twitter, Facebook. Ma'am, how can I take part? I want to take part. So it's grown like by leaps and bounds. And I'm trying to, like, when I did the events, people were welcome to come to the events in Delhi and Chennai. So I'm trying to work on having everybody get involved. So I'm working on a website now. I got half of it up. It should be out hopefully in the next week or so, voiceforindia.com. So, and that's to get more people involved, because a lot of people say, it's just I love it. It touches my heart. They said, you inspire me, you encourage me, you motivate me. So I'm making people more patriotic. I'm educating them. I'm encouraging them to stand up for themselves. So they really like the platform Voice for India, because there is so much, blows my mind that India is 80% Hindus, but yet they get discriminated against, their temples are controlled. And it's just just blows my mind the way the Hindus get treated. There's no Hindu equality. So I do Hindu equality, and a lot of the international mainstream media and even some Indian media, they say horrible fake news about India, about Modi ji. And I'm oh my God, saying that India is the rape capital of the world. That's not true at all. I've been to India 23 times. I've been alone day and night, bus, trains. India has the best hospitality in the world. And as a world traveler traveling all over, I honestly can say that there's no other place in the world like India.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, and even when you go to the like 5-star hotels and you have those guards with the mustaches. I mean, down to the way they carry themselves. They live service. I mean, it's part of the thing. It's amazing.
Gosh, that's amazing. So it just breaks my heart that I don't want to hear anybody say all this fake news about India. It's not going to happen. I'm going to get the truth out in my books, videos, platform. The truth is going to get out because it needs to get out. Enough is enough of this fake news about Modi, about India, about being a rape country. And also I did another video, I'm not sure if you've seen it, it went viral, not as much as the Priyanka Chopra, but it did went viral because CNN published something, broadcast on television from the Thomas Redder Foundation, and they said India is the most dangerous country in the world for women, more than Pakistan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. Seriously? Like, like I've never been to them countries and I can't. Like these women are beaten down. They can't drive. Are you serious? More than India? Oh my God. Kurt, I got so upset. I had to do this video. And so I got the video to get the truth out. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, they had an Indian prime minister since the 70s. America hasn't even broken that glass ceiling yet. The amount of women in leadership positions, whether it be in the private sector, in politics, and Sonia Gandhi is an Italian, who in Italy probably would not reach the heights that she has in India, because it's part ignorance, and I do think that there is a disinformation campaign from the Pakistani ISI intelligence. What is it? I can't remember what it stands for. The intelligence service.
I can't remember right now what it stands.
But it's their intelligence. It's like the CIA. It's like the Pakistani CIA, or the it's their intelligence agency. And I mean, they have, and because the United States has supported Pakistan ever since its founding in 1947 against India, so there's always been these ties between the CIA and Pakistan, which interestingly, and Pakistan is the one that supported the Taliban, because Imran Khan at the United Nations is saying that. He's saying, listen, you told us to arm the Taliban and to support them against the Soviet Union, and now you're telling us they're the enemy, but they're our friends. I mean, it's quite amazing all the stuff he was saying there at the UN, and people just ignored. They just let it go because most people aren't going to listen to it, and even if they do listen to it, they might not even understand what the references that he's making. So they just suppress it all, and then they pull up this narrative about evil Hindu fascists, and it's just crazy.
I know, but if Narendra Modi were to say something just like a quarter of something what he did, oh God, it would have been all over the news. Oh, he's fascist. Oh, he's this. Oh my God. I know. It's like, I know. I hear you. It's like, it just blows my mind.
It defies logic and objectivity. Sure, you don't have to agree with Modi. You don't have to agree with India. You could support Islam over Hinduism, whatever. That's okay. But I mean, at least be logical, be honest, be look at facts. But it's really something else.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been doing this work for a while now. How long have you been had the Voice for India channels up? How long have you been doing it?
I originally took it to Facebook, and I started that in 2012. And then I'm just kind of new to Twitter. So I had my Twitter account in 2017, but I'm like, I've always been like you have one favorite social media that you like. For me, it was like Facebook. So I was always on Facebook. So I did it and I said, no, I didn't like it. So then it must have been, I think I've been on really technically on Twitter since maybe March. So not that long at all. So when I took to Twitter, I exploded. Like everybody, I'm waiting for your tweets. I'm waiting for your tweets. I love you. I love you. I'm waiting for your tweets. I like to get facts out there. I like to get my messages out there. So it really, Voice for India really catapulted when I went on Twitter. And technically, I really should have been on Twitter long ago, because Twitter is more like the political, where people are more political on Twitter than say Facebook or Instagram or things like that. So when I took there, like my Voice for India just catapulted. Like I had everybody's like, oh my God, all my friends in India, they're like, oh my God, everybody knows who you are. You're a celebrity here. You're famous. Everybody knows who you are. And like people are like, news people, they're like, oh, I want to interview you. And then I was on Times Now last week. They wanted me to give my opinion about Modi and the awards. So it's just like been crazy. So yeah, so now Twitter is like my favorite. I'm addicted to Twitter. But I'm still on Facebook, but Twitter is like, well, I love Twitter.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, I mean, I know you've been on Indian TV, and I think you've been nominated for an Indian Icon Award, haven't you?
Yeah, my friend from India, he goes, you're nominated for the India Icon Award 2019. And I'm like, oh my God, seriously? He goes, yes. He goes, everybody loves you here. We all love you. You're doing great work. I'm like, oh my God, this is like so awesome.
So that award is in India itself, not in the US. It's not among NRIs, non-resident Indians. It's in India.
Yeah, in India itself.
Wow,
so
that's
wow, I said, that's great. And then I had shared it on my Facebook and Twitter, and everybody would say, man, I'm so proud of you. I love you. I love you. I'm so proud of you. You're doing such great work. So it just makes me feel so great, because I just love India so much. I love its people so much. And it just breaks my heart when the media and all these horrible people say fake news about India and Modi, and it's just not right. So it's my pride and my pleasure to do this. Honestly, it is. I just love it. And all my fans, they're just so appreciative of my work. And of course, naturally, I have haters out there. I really when I took to Twitter, I became an overnight success on Twitter, and then people started attacking me. So I'm like, oh my God, block. And a good friend of mine here, he's like, you're gonna have to expect that. He goes, once you become really well known, everybody knows you. He goes, the next couple of months, it might be a lot of haters coming out there. So I don't say. See, I don't respond. A lot of them, there are a lot of fake accounts just trying to attack me. So I just simply quietly block them, get on my work. They want me to attack them and fight back. I'm not going to do that. Make another fake account. I'll just block you again. I'll just silently block you. I have work to do. I'm on a mission. I can't be fighting with my haters. But hey, I love my haters, because they motivate me and they push me to get out there even more and do more work. So thank you, haters. I love you. You motivate me. Thank you so much, haters.
Yeah, no, it's quite amazing. And, I honestly do think that your feeling of attachment to India is probably, very deeply rooted, in the sense that, a lot of European culture, whether it be ancient Celtic culture or Viking or Greek or Roman, does come from and have connections to Indian culture, and that there are a lot of and again, we won't spend time going through all of it, but from everything down to the names of the days of the week to the planet and planets, all this stuff actually comes from ancient Indian culture, which is still alive there. And I think when you're open to that, there is a way of self-identification that you're probably seeing there. That that it's an ancient family link that has been broken and now is being reconnected.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because I always tell everybody, I was like, I know from my previous life, I was from India and my parents came to America and I didn't want to go. I was crying. So now from some past life, my soul is connected to India and I'm mad at my parents because they came to the US and I want to stay in India. So my soul wants to keep going back to India. So that's my message why I have this, like, people think it's crazy. You've been to India 23 times. I'm like, yeah, wait. Then I tell you, when it's time to leave, I start crying. So many times I extended my stay because I can't leave. I can't explain the feeling and the passion I have for India. It hurts me when I leave. Oh my God.
And I really believe that the passion for yoga that is coming up in this is also tied to that yoga and meditation and these sorts of things. That Americans are very receptive to it because it's speaking to sort of an ancient hidden connection. I really think so. So that's quite amazing.
Yeah, actually, I did an article about that just to elaborate that. I hear what you're saying. Some people do, but in America, yoga is $1 billion industry. So people are just getting certified in, say, 6 weeks. They're opening up a yoga studio, and the yoga they're doing is a joke. It's not even yoga. They're just doing it to make money. I mean, I've been to some of these. I'm like, I paid $15 an hour for this. I have much better yoga doing BKS Iyengar yoga by Gaim company, Rodney Yee. I don't know if you ever heard of Rodney Yee. He's a huge yoga guru. But it's all money making. Most of them here in America, it's all to make a quick buck because it is a buck. Everybody's doing yoga. And sadly, they're going in these yoga studios and they're doing yoga like, oh my God, they're like, all right, let's add like 10 push-ups here. Let's do some squats, and then we'll add this asana. Like, seriously? This isn't the traditional yoga. Like, that just blows my mind. So, yeah, but not all of them. Some of them really are into the real spiritual yoga with the asanas and the positions that connect your mind, body, and soul. Some of them do, but they're very far and few. Most of them are into the money end of it because it does make a lot of money here in America. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. Just one final question about your trips to India, and just curious. So have you learned a lot of Hindi or any Indian language at all?
Yeah, well, initially I was learning Tamil.
Right.
So after a time, I'm like, oh my God. No, first I was learning Hindi. Then I was spending a lot of time in Tamil Nadu. So I was learning Tamil, and it was just too difficult. So I went back to learning Hindi. So I've been learning like Hindi off and on. Lately, I really haven't been studying because I got so busy with my Voice of India project and then writing my book. So it just got so busy, I couldn't even find time. But I do know basic Hindi. Like if I'm out walking around, like I can talk to, say, the rickshaw driver or to somebody, like basic Hindi to get around what I need. Or if they're like, the rickshaw drivers are trying to get a few more bucks, some rupees for the thing. I'm like, nah, I'm the best negotiator now. From being in India 23 times, I am the best negotiator.
Yeah, because people, for all all the things we're talking about, the spirituality and the great traditions and everything. Yeah, people will rip you off in a minute in India as well. There's a lot of sides to India, and let's be realistic. That's there.
This girl's a tourist. I don't consider myself a tourist anymore. I consider myself a local. So they're thinking, oh yeah, it's probably her first time there. Oh Oh no, I can negotiate better than the Indians there. Trust me, I can. I'm that good. I became a master. And now I have a new trick when I go there because the rickshaw driver's like, okay, so it's going to be like 100 rupees. So I always have my Uber out. So I'm like, but Uber's only charging 50 rupees. You want 200? It's okay. I'll call Uber. No, madam. Okay, madam. 50 rupees, madam. I was like, great.
So I've had you here for a while. Let's try to move to sum things up. It's been a really, really fascinating conversation. I'm glad to have made the connection. But in sum, what would you say is the main message that you want to put out in the world? And and what is like the main impact you'd like to have?
To the entire world or just the India community?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, are you focusing on the world? Are you focusing on the States? Are you focusing on India? How would you say where would you say your main focus is and the messages?
Yeah, so actually India and the world. For India, I encourage, motivate, and I do in-depth research through my book. I do research on different topics, and I get the message out there. I I come head to head on with celebrities and people like that say fake news about India. So my whole message is for like Hindu equality and fake news, but also for the Western counterparts too, because in my book, I tell them the truth about India. It's safe. You can go to India, because I read so many comments on YouTube and certain platforms, and women were saying, oh, I want to go to India, and your comments you read, oh, don't go to India, you will get raped, you won't make it out alive. So I put stuff like that in my book, the research, and I tell them from my own personal experience, look, I've been there, I know the truth. This isn't what it is. You can't believe the media. This is not true. So my message is for the whole entire world to know the truth about India and Hindus. It's a great country. It's a safe country. You're not going to get raped. I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm just saying message that they're putting out in mass manipulation that they're ingraining that you will, if you're a woman, you're going to like, oh my God, it's horrible. So my message is for, mainly for India, people, for encouraging, inspiring, and getting the truth out, but also to let the Western world know that India is a beautiful, safe country. You have nothing to worry about. So it's kind of like on a lot of different platforms.
Yeah. Now, you described your really horrific experience, I would have to say, with the state government agency you worked for. You've experienced trolls and stuff online, and as this Kashmir issue becomes more and more intense. Are you scared of anything at all? It's a minefield in many ways. Do you have any fears? Do you?
If I go to India, like a war might break out with Pakistan.
No, or like death threats, like even here, have you gotten things like that, like from anything like that, death threats?
I got you. Yes, I have received death threats. People had comment on like Facebook and Twitter. They're like, when you come to Delhi, because people follow me, they know like Delhi's my home. I always come in and out of Delhi. So when you come to Delhi, I'm going to rape you. I'm going to kill you. And these horrible names that they call me, So yes, I do get death threats. One point, I guess maybe.
And these are from who? Yeah, I mean, could you identify?
By their last names, it's like Khan. It's Islam last name. But it's the truth. They have Muslims last names. And I hate to say it, I don't mean prejudice. I do have Muslim friends. I respect them in the community, but they just happen to be Mohammed and names like that.
Yeah, I know. It's true, and I mean, it has to be said because this is a type of attacks you see constantly on social media, and we cannot pretend that it doesn't exist or that everybody is doing it in the same proportions. Sure, every community has terrible people, there's no question, but I mean, there's a systematic aspect that, sorry, go
yes,
on about it.
I'm very personal about my personal life. I don't give my number out because I have a lot of people, oh man, I'm getting your number. They try to be like these fake reporters, to try to get my number, try to fish information from me. So I don't, very personal with my personal life and, where I reside, where I'm staying at in Delhi or anything like that, only because of that reason, just to be extra cautious. So, I can tell by the messages I'm getting and just like certain things that they're saying. They want my number. So I'm very leery. I do like a lot of research. I find out who you are. And I can't respond to everybody anyway because, oh my God, I receive so many messages and comments daily. It's just like crazy. So yeah, I'm a little on guard. Not here when I'm in the United States. Mainly when I go to like Delhi or India, because now I'm walking on the streets now, and people are coming up to me. Oh, I know who you are. Can I have a selfie? So people are recognizing me on the streets now. And even when I was in New York City at the UN for the Modi event, people recognized me there. So people are really recognizing me now in public. So, I have to be careful. Not so much I'm really worried about, but, if I'm in Delhi somewhere, maybe for the most part, but there's a lot of people around. So there's always somebody to help you. And the people there are really nice. But still, it's good to have, like, your guard up a little bit. So I'm really cautious on that level. So...
Absolutely. I like to ask my guests this question because it's not just about the ideas, but it's about the personality behind the ideas. What gives you the strength to overcome these fears? Because a lot of people would just stay away completely because of that, right? So they wouldn't. If there's going to be a hint of controversy or threat, well, they're not even going to go there. But you bravely go out persistently. There's some source of strength you're drawing upon. Could you share what that is with us?
Yeah, I know a lot of my fans like, man, you're so brave. You're so brave. Like, I get that all the time. They like, you're Rani Lakshmibai. You know who Rani Lakshmibai is? I get called Rani Lakshmibai, all this. So basically, I just never had a coward mentality. I've always been a fighter. That's why I got my degree in criminal justice, because I just love that arena, that field of work, detective work and research and all that. It's just kind of more geared to that. So, and even though I'm introvert a long time ago, and I guess I kind of still consider myself an introvert, but I have so much passion in what I have to say, and I try not to be fearful, because I lived in fear practically my whole entire life. So a lot of it's just my personality, I guess. If I feel strongly about an issue or something, I'm just going to keep press forwarding. I'm going to keep getting my message out. You can send me all the death threats you want. You can threaten me. These haters can say whatever they want. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to stand up for India. I'm going to stand up for the Hindus. And, I just look that God's protecting me. The universe is protecting me. So I have that mentality, because believe me, oh my God, I'm sure stuff could happen. I really truly feel like God's protecting me. I really do. And I believe that. I believe the universe is there too. So I really don't have that much fear. I mean, even now I walk around in Delhi all by myself at night. I don't, because once you connect with the fear, it becomes you and around you. That's the law of attraction. I don't want no concept of that. That's why everything, I always say everything always works out for me. I always feel like I'm protected, I'm safe, because I think like that, what you think you become. So a lot of it is the law of attraction and my thinking. And I truly believe God is protecting me. So
Now, I want to raise this thing with you too, because both of us have had a Catholic and a Hindu upbringing, and I've thought about this issue myself because sometimes people have spoken about, you know, me and in terms of my positions and stuff, and I might, you know, be public about things that many Hindus would not be, and I've often wondered for myself whether it was my Christian upbringing that was part of that, because I do see many Hindus are very, very scared of a lot of things, especially in the Caribbean here, you know, and that, you know, and growing up as a Christian, and like the story of Jesus and how he would be whipped, or Pontius Pilate would tell him, I can let you go, or you know, if you just, you know, ask me, and he wouldn't, you know, and there's this idea that to do the right thing, you have to accept suffering, that's part. So there's this Christian message that, and the Catholic Church in particular, with the passion of the Christ, the suffering of the Christ, and so forth. I think that stuck with me no matter what, and that it remains an inspiration. I am always moved by that whole story of the passion of the Christ and the suffering of Jesus and so forth. And I wonder how much of that has stayed with me, even, you know, and has been part of the bravery and courage. That might be because, you know, Hinduism is not a complete hermetic philosophy. It's a collection of philosophies, and it's always learning. It's always grabbing from others. I wonder if this aspect of bravery, you know, can be really brought in as something that I think the Catholic Church in particular, in the story of Jesus, could help. And it probably has helped me. I don't know. Do you think it helped you? What do you think about what I was just saying?
No, that's really great. I feel the same way, especially, and even I always say, I don't believe in Christianity. I believe the Bible is distorted. They change it to meet whatever political agenda was. But I believe in Jesus. I still pray to Jesus. And also, that's the beauty of Hinduism, is because you can be a Hindu and you can still pray to Buddha or Jesus. So I still pray to Jesus. I love Jesus. I believe he's real. I just don't believe Christianity. I don't want nothing to do with Christianity. So I connect with Jesus' stories still. And even like when they show the stories of him dying on the cross and how they whipped him, I still get emotional and I still cry. I'm still connected to Jesus and part of Jesus, and it just breaks my heart. And exactly, I totally agree with you there.
Right. That's very interesting. I'm glad we made that little connection there. I agree with that myself. So, can you tell us about your plans in the next 5 years or so? I think you're working on a book again, and you have your channels. Why don't you tell us a bit more?
All right, so my main mission right now, being that Voice for India, really catapulted, and like it's just like gone mad lately. So right now, I told you I'm working on the website. I want to get more people involved. I want to motivate, encourage, and inspire more people. So right now, that's my main message, and I'm working on a second book, which I plan on having out by the end of the year. So I'm working on that, and so basically that's my main goals in the next couple years, is to really get this Voice for India, get it more out there so I can inspire people, because a lot of the Hindus, I hate to say it, even they will say it, like they're like, yeah, ma'am, and they'll come patriotic, but when the time comes, like they're lazy. They don't want to do the work, and they even tell me, "Man, you're doing all this work for us. We should be doing this work. We're lazy. We don't want to do it." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the truth." So I have to push them, and I have to motivate them. Get up and stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. So that's my main focus right now. The next couple years is to motivate these people, and maybe I'll get more events my next visit to India, so I can speak more at events in India, and then just encourage and motivate the people. So yeah, that's my really my main mission, which I love anyway. So I have to keep pushing these Indians. They gotta do the work. They gotta get up and fight for your rights, right?
No, that's true. And again, I think that sense of justice does really come so much, I think, from a Christian background. In a way, I think many Hindus, and I'm being brutally honest here, I mean, I think many Hindus would see, well, we're in Kali Yuga, so it's the last evil age, and it's going to be reborn and Satyuga is going to come afterwards. And so in Kali Yuga, of course, evil is reigning in the world, and there's going to be no justice. And so they're kind of fatalistic that justice won't happen because right now we're living in an evil time. So what's the use of fighting? You're going to lose. And so I think a lot of people come up with that excuse. I don't think it's justified by the theology, by the ideas of Hinduism, but people use it to justify their laziness, because you have the Gita, your duty to fight and all this, but
yes,
they'll kind of push that aside, and they'll pick up some other things to justify their inaction. But I do think that there is a sense of justice in Christianity, in Islam as well. I have many good Muslim friends, and we talk about these things, and there's that sense of justice in those religions that's extremely, extremely strong, and
yes.
and I think that's something Hinduism and Hindus could learn from, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, well, tell me where. So, just remind us, where can people reach you and find out more about you? So Twitter, your handle is what? Voice for India?
Yeah, if you just Google me, Renee Lynn, Voice for India, you'll come up with all my links on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So yeah, and my book will come out on Amazon. So yeah, you could just Google me, and you'll get all this stuff on me. Hopefully good stuff.
They could subscribe to your Twitter feed. They could like your page on Facebook and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter is my main page. So if you just Google Renee Lynn Voice for India, my Twitter and Facebook page will come up. So follow me on Twitter. I'm more active on Twitter nowadays. I love Twitter. And I'm on Facebook too a lot. So like me on my page, Renee Lynn Voice for India. So
Great. Well, thanks so much. This was a great interview. And I not only want to thank you for the interview, but really for all your work and your determination. And what you're doing is so extremely important. I mean, and even if people don't agree with your point of view, maybe especially if they don't agree, because they need this alternative information. So I wish you all the best and every success in your mission and your struggles ahead, because this serious disinformation campaign, it needs to be stopped in the name of humanity, of progress and development. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you. We have similar backgrounds and everything, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. We have to do another one some other time. It was great. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Well, that's all for Independent Thought and Freedom this week. Please join us again next week. And in the meanwhile, make sure you subscribe, leave me a rating, and like and share this podcast with your friends. Thanks, and bye for now.